Welcome to Central Bay.
Charlie Hebdo is a French Weekly Charlie. It's a French satirical weekly newspaper featuring cartoons, reports, polemics, jokes, and so on. It makes fun of Catholicism, Islam, Judaism, politics, culture, and so on, and it sees itself as strongly anti-racist and left-wing. Charlie Hebdo is, well, a newspaper depicting anti-Islamic, anti-religion, anti-everything practically. Sick, perverted, it's not satirical anymore because it is so vile. If you were Christian and you would see this, you would not laugh about it. You would see this as an open provocation. Again, it is not about freedom of speech. That is about insulting and provoking practically an open provocation to Christianity as an example. Well, that is an example of Charlie Hebdo comics, and here you see Mohammed lying naked practically, being videotaped, and he says, "You like on my ass? You like my ass?" That is a film that embraces the world, the Muslim world. That is the title of this comic. That is a video about Charlie Hebdo and about practically criticism in society and so-called freedom of speech, if it's actually a real existing phenomenon or not. First, I'd like to quote from Voltaire: "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you're not allowed to criticize." Voltaire. We are allowed practically to create a periodical and then a comic in this periodical, or even in TV, insulting various religions or various points of view. For me honest, I checked out the comics of Charlie Hebdo, and they are really perverted and gay actually. It is perverted. I don't find them funny at all. I think it's just a sexual perverted comics in at the same time insulting the different religions in society. And for me it is practically a provocation to these people. It's insulting people, and it's if you live together with a minority in France. I believe there are over 8 million Muslims in France. If you insult this minority in such a fashion, then you can react a reaction. Then you can expect a reaction actually. So it's actually a natural process. Once these minority groups become a majority and we still start insulting them, then worse thing can happen depending on what actually is said in the newspapers. There should be regulations on what is being allowed to be said in the newspapers or not. And I believe that this is just simply unfounded, provocative propaganda, perverted propaganda. There should be freedom of speech, but to such an extent that it doesn't influence the minds of the people in such a negative fashion. It's simply vile. So what is actually the freedom of speech? I talked with my half-brother about this. You believe that Saddam Hussein or under Adolf Hitler, there were laws protecting Adolf Hitler, not Adolf Hitler, but there was practically a freedom of press. But there were laws regulating this process. They did not have total freedom, so they were not allowed to wage an anti-propaganda war against the regime or against the ones that rule over them. But in the Third Reich, even Hitler had his own periodical called the Völkische Beobachter. Well, that is Google, the Völkische Beobachter. It was a personal periodical of Adolf Hitler. And he said it to them: the truth has to be said. The truth has to be said, and not in this way of provocating other people or even these perverted jokes and comics were considered back then to be Zionist or Jewish propaganda. Now today, these people are not Jews who make these periodicals and comics, I admit, but it is the same signs of a controlled society that is actually sick and ill. I talked to my half-brother, and imagine there would be a dictatorship or a rulership, or if you would be ruling over this country and you had anything to say about it, and you would do your job as best as you can, in an honest fashion, yeah? Would you actually accept, if you had the power to change it, that somebody insults you over and over again in a news periodical? This is just an example, yeah? Insulting a religion or insulting peoples of power, insulting general peoples, Muslims in general, for their beliefs, yeah? If you would have anything to say over the society, would you allow practically personal criticism to take place? And the answer is no. It is actually in your best interest to keep the peace, so would you actually pass laws to forbid any type of provocation like Charlie Hebdo comics. If you had anything to say, of course. Today's politicians are insulted over and over again if they do not bow down practically to the Zionist control of the governments. If you look at Bill Clinton as an example with his what was her name again? Monica Lewinsky, the Lewinsky scandal. Yeah, Bill Clinton didn't want to do something what the Zionists wanted him to do, so he had to be removed. And then you get a scandal. And the media is used here in this apparent attack. I don't know if it's a false flag operation. It could be. But imagine that these comics keep on spreading hatred, actually, from the Muslims to the so-called intellectual, perverted elites that say, under the guise of the freedom of speech, have to insult the great prophet of the Muslims, yeah, over and over again, out of freedom of speech. And then they expect not to be attacked. They expected it. They actually moved to above a police station because they were scared of attacks. Now, if there wouldn't be a Muslim minority in these, in France, it's an example, if there wouldn't be this multiculturalism, then there wouldn't be any comics against it, because, first of all, there wouldn't be a reason to make fun of them. But even if they are a minority, you should not make fun of them. Why should it? It's not that we're making fun of the Jews all the time, although they also make jokes over the Jews, but we are not targeting them over and over again and on weekly newspapers and making fun of them. So I believe that freedom of speech is an illusion, firstly. If you speak your mind on the so-called Holocaust or revisionist history, there are laws in Europe, in France, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Germany, depicting that you are not allowed to question the very foundation of history by law. You cannot even question this. And if you do so, they can put you in jail for it. But at the same time, they're allowed to make fun of the minority groups, Muslims, to such an extent that terrorist reaction happens. Now, the Mossad could have done this. I believe so as well. But I believe this is a reaction from trained reactionaries in Syria or Iraq. I don't know where they went for the training. And then had enough of this and wanted to execute them. If you have a large minority group, then you have to treat it in such a fashion that they're part of the people, they're part of our society. Now I know that in the minority groups, the crime rate is a lot higher than in the non-minority groups. The statistics prove it over and over again. 80% of all detainees here in the Netherlands is practically from migratory background. Then if I would be a hardliner, if I would rule over the Netherlands or be a politician, I would make hard rules. Anybody that misbehaves and is not from the Netherlands, yeah, should be sent back where he comes from. Start removing the criminal elements in the society. But that is not made. Let's tolerate it. I find these comics to be perverted, sick, vile, provocative, and if this were genuine attacks, then it was just a matter of time, because I find these comics to be so provocative that it's not the freedom of speech that they're actually pushing all the time in the media. It's provocation and inciting a race war. You can make criticism, no doubt, in a normal and honest fashion. That should also be possible. Criticism and analysis. But this is provocation. Imagine you would be Saddam Hussein that would never tolerate this, nor Adolf Hitler would never tolerate this, or Gaddafi. Everybody that really gains power in society wants to be respected. And we get programmed and programmed and programmed that we're not even allowed to criticize the Zionists or the Jews in that respect without getting a programmed reaction. That is how powerful their control is over our minds. I talk about the Zionists, but more in a broader term, it's the Jews practically in all these places. The kosher mafia is one of the most powerful mafias in the world, and Jewish-controlled Hollywood makes sure that they never make a movie about it. So it does not exist in your mind. They don't even make documentaries about it. They control the criminal underworld. The criminal underworld in Dallas, Jewish, the kosher mafia there, was responsible for the Kennedy assassination together with the Mossad. So I believe that this was all open provocation. They were expecting this. It was just a matter of time. At the same time, I give the accountability. It is possible that the Mossad did this. It's professionally not done enough. And I'm really honest, they were military trained. These people, they looked older. Their eyes looked older. Might be that it's brothers. I don't know if this is again a false flag operation, or they provoked this. At the same time, the media writes along 24/7 on the subject, making a big hype out of it to increase the tensions between the Muslims and the Christians in the West as a long-term plan, practically, to destroy civilizations. At the end, when there's so many people or foreigners in it, and they leave their host, because for China as an example, they don't stay. They will stay as long as necessary, and have themselves protected by our police and by our military, while at the same time everybody else slaughters each other off. Like in South Africa, and some places in South Africa you cannot live out of fear for your life. Or in the ghettos in America. Multiculturalist societies do not work and are crime infested. That's what I wanted to say about Charles Hebdo. I don't think I shouldn't be tolerated. It's not about freedom of speech. It's about respect. Yeah, they keep pushing the freedom of speech here in the news. That is freedom of speech. You can make jokes, but you've seen it how disgusting and perverted they are. Another example is in Germany. The Titanic, that is so vile and disgusting, and people still laugh about it. And back then when I read it, after I woke up and was practically aware of my people and aware of what they were doing, and I looked at those jokes and I was like, what the fuck are they doing? They're yelling it out practically what they're doing, but in such a disgusting and perverted manner that you would actually consider putting them all to jail or on some island, but not give them the possibility of spreading this on paper. Our society is sick, and that is the result of it. What I wanted to add is, I talked to my health brother again. It's not about criticism of the society. It's not a satire. So it's not satirical. It is vile. It is perverted. And it insults a minority group in our society that could become violent if it is provoked over and over again. And at the same time, there is no real freedom of speech. I am for freedom of speech, for the truth. So I can speak my own view on the truth without being provoked or without being attacked or without even being put to jail for speaking my views on history and my insight on revisionist history and my view on world affairs. But if I would ever have power, and I would do my best to have the people happy, clothed with a roof over their heads, and a job, and a happy life, I would do my best, yeah? And I would not tolerate a periodical that points me and makes fun of me, makes gay, homosexual, or perverted type of jokes, insinuating this and that, like Charlie Hebdo does with the Muslims or the Christians or even the Jews. That's what I wanted to say. You do not tolerate being insulted in your own household. At the same time, they're insulting these people over and over again, and then of course that it might happen that such a reaction is provoked. Again, it's not about freedom of speech, it's about simply stopping, about respect. You can make jokes, you can make satirical jokes, but not in this manner. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to add, and cheers.